But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today for our international SEO session in partnership with Rex Marketing. My name is Kayla, and I'm super excited to welcome everyone. If this is your first time at a Start Out event, I would love to provide a little bit of context about Start Out and what we do. So Start Out accelerates the growth of the LGBTQ plus community to drive its economic empowerment, building a world where every LGBTQ plus entrepreneur has equal access to lead, succeed, and shape the workforce of the future. We do this through programming like our Growth Lab Accelerator, networking opportunities like our local chapter events, and with educational events just like this one. So if you're not yet a Start Out member, we would invite you to head to startout.org after this session to go ahead and sign up to find out about future events like this one and other opportunities to get involved. And we are super excited to welcome back Ryan from Rex Marketing today for our session about international SEO. So thank you so much for being here. I will hand it off to you, Ryan, to introduce yourself and get us started.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Kayla. And yeah, welcome everybody. Appreciate you joining today. We'll be talking about international SEO and steps on optimizing your website for international organic performance. Just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I'm based in Austin. I'm a second-time founder. Previously was the founder of Contest, an ed tech startup. From there, went on to be the head of growth marketing in a handful of early stage companies. Come from mainly the healthcare and education space, but the things we'll be talking about today are industry agnostic. They can really be used anywhere in any industry, any company. And currently the co-founder of Rex Marketing and CX. Just a little bit about what we do. So we work with early stage companies, again, come from the education and healthcare space. So a large number of our clients come from that space, but we do work with a number of different types of industries. We focus in the areas of SEO, content strategy and marketing, design and development, ops, marketing ops, paid, things like that. So anybody who's out there looking for help from the marketing standpoint, international SEO standpoint, or just organic growth in general, feel free to reach out. Work with all kinds of budgets and all kinds of early stage companies. But just to jump into the material we'll be talking about today. So we'll first be just talking about what is international SEO, why is it important, why should you prioritize it, and also we'll be talking about why you shouldn't prioritize this stuff today. I'll dive into that a little bit deeper, but then looking into target markets, structuring your website for international performance, talking a bit about localization versus direct translation, international keyword research, link building strategies for international markets, and then measuring success of, is this working? Is this not working? Is it worth our time? Things like that. So just to go ahead and jump into understanding international SEO, just to speak high level of why it matters. So outside of the US, 60% of web traffic comes from outside of the US on search engines. So a large portion of searches conducted are actually outside of the US. So which is why if you are looking to reach international markets, it's important to prioritize organic performance and organic search performance. SEO does vary from country due to languages, cultural differences, different search engines that are used in each country. Some countries actually have their own preferred search engine, depending on where where the searcher is based. So that being said, it can vary pretty greatly from one country to the next. And as you're looking to prioritize reaching a new market, you need to think about these things as you look at ranking organically. And then additionally, versus having to rely on paid other channels, by prioritizing international SEO, you're going to be able to reach new markets, new potential customers or clients organically if you prioritize SEO and follow correct strategies. So there are a number of components when it comes to international SEO. We're going to dive into all of these in deeper detail as the presentation goes on. But just to call out some of the most important things. First is geo-targeting. An example of what this is would be like if someone was based in London and they were searching for running shoes, they might see like versus Nike.com in their search engine results. They might see Nike.com.uk. If you've ever been, it's pretty common to do with like international e-commerce brands or physical products. So if you've done any searches when you've been abroad or traveling internationally, you've probably seen this yourself, whether it be .uk when you're in the UK, or if you're in Canada, .ca, you're in Germany, .de. Each country has their own uh, specific code for their domains. So that being said, you might see different ones depending on where you're located and where you're searching and what the company's done. Href lang tags. So these are related to identifying what page to show depending on the person's language and location of search. So for example, an href lang tag would determine if you were going to show a page in Spanish versus showing a page in English, so to speak. Um, Localizing your content. So adapting your content, adapting your copy on your website to fit local culture and geography, and then international link building. So building backlinks from authoritative websites, bloggers, things like that from different countries can actually help improve your country specific domain authority. So if you've done any work in SEO, you're probably aware of your website's domain authority and how you are ranking from a domain authority perspective. And each country can have their own domain authority performance. So the more backlinks you generate from a certain country, you can then improve your authority within that country specifically as you are looking to prioritize and grow your organic reach. So these are just some of the components of international SEO. We'll be diving into these and others in deeper detail, but just to kind of set the stage, these are the main components that you want to be thinking about when you're thinking about your international SEO strategy and your approach to it. So moving into your target markets. So first off, this is more of a strategic decision for your company, your brand, and your services. I'll be truthful with you. I would say that part of this presentation will be me talking about how to go about implementing international SEO strategies, but also I'll be advising on maybe why you should not be doing this. I would say transparently, trying to prioritize your SEO strategy for an international market really only should be done by certain companies, certain products, and certain services. To give you an example, a company like PayPal. PayPal.com never really went the route of creating a paypal.com.da, .uk, what have you, because they were a software in themselves and they built up a authority and brand name that people still search for and still showed up for in organic search because they were PayPal. Another example that on the flip side of that, of where it's important to prioritize international SEO, is a company like Airbnb. So Airbnb implemented strategies like we'll be talking about today, whereas as you can probably imagine from the importance of performing organically in a local market, they have Airbnb.da, .ca, .uk. The reason being, from a strategy perspective, it makes sense that they want local users to have more trust, build credibility for their local users, etc., and use their .uk website, their .ca website, what have you. So I would say, to kind of paint a picture, if you're a software company that say, you're pretty market agnostic, individuals could use you from anywhere within the world. You don't necessarily have a large amount of buyers from a specific country. There's no sort of indicators pointing that you need to specifically follow strategies to implement and expand to a new market, like and follow these SEO strategies, then it probably isn't the best idea for your company to spend time and effort doing that. If for whatever reason you are a company, let's say you're an e-commerce brand and you realize that, hey, 25 to 30% of our sales are coming from the UK. We have not prioritized our international performance from a UK, but our services, our products are resonating with users there. But we're not driving as much traffic organically, then it might make sense to prioritize these efforts and start to expand and think about your SEO perspective from a UK perspective. So again, this is a highly strategic, more conversation you need to ask yourself of whether it makes sense for your brand or your services to prioritize these efforts and expand organically into new markets. Or if you're a product that we don't need to do this right now, we don't have any indicators that are pointing that we need to do this at this moment in time, then you should not go this route, invest the time and resources into it. The biggest things to consider obviously the market demand. How in demand is your product or your services in the specific market you're looking to reach out to? What other competitors do you have in that market, in that area? That's obviously going to influence how you're going to rank. If you have a large amount of competition or highly ranking competitors in a local market, it's going to be harder for you to compete and get up there, and get up in higher rankings organically. Also considering you're the preferred search engine for the country. So not every country, but there are countries that have other search engines that are popular with their local market and with the local users of search. So to name out some of them, like obviously Google's a big one, Baidu, Yandex. These are some other search engines that maybe you've never heard of before, but that are popular in other countries. And obviously considering local consumer behavior. So understanding how do people behave, what type of purchasing decisions do they make, what drives their purchasing decisions. These are all factors to consider as you even can think about wanting to prioritize international SEO efforts for your company. And then moving into how you would choose your markets. Now moving into actually how would you implement international SEO strategies to improve your performance. So first thing we'll be looking at is how to structure your website. So when it comes to structuring your website, there's a few different approaches you can take to structuring your URLs. So as I was mentioning earlier, you've probably seen if you've done searches abroad or you've maybe search for an e-commerce brand and you've seen the .uk or .ee or .de domains. These are called country code top level domains or CCTLDs. So these are since these are a few different approaches, I'd say CCTLDs, these are better for a strong local brand. So obviously, if you're a resident of Germany and you come across a website that's .de, you're going to have there's going to be a higher level of credibility to that brand because they have a website that is tailored to that local geography. That website is .de or .uk or .ca for Canada, whatever the case may be. Having a country code top level domain is going to help establish that brand credibility and resonate more so with the local audience that's conducting these searches. Just as I was describing the example of like PayPal versus Airbnb, obviously if someone's looking for uh, like temporary short-term rental, like for Airbnb, they're going to prefer a local geography because the search is and what they're doing is related to their geography. They're doing a search for a local place they can rent, a local place they can stay. Whereas like a software company, it's not going to have as necessarily as big of an impact as something like that service of a short-term rental. Um, One of the downfalls of doing this, and I'd say that it can get costly, and I'd say the disclaimer is it just depends on how many countries you're looking to prioritize. You're going to have to purchase each of these country code domains individually. So depending if you're just buying one, it's not going to be a lot, but if you get more, it's going to get more costly as the more you add on. And it can be complex from a technical standpoint because you're going to be needing to create basically a carbon copy of your website for that new domain um, that fits that local market. So again, it can get more technical because you're going to be having to recreate the website to an extent for that new domain that you're on. Another route you can go is subdirectories. So this is a bit more straightforward. And if you're more technical, you probably know what I'm referring to when I say subdirectories, but a subdirectory is just a folder within your website that houses content or houses pages on your website. So for an example would be like yourwebsite.com/FR. FR for France. That's France's country code. So this would be easier to manage. You're not going to be having to purchase domains or deal with subdomains. It also has benefits from a domain authority perspective because you're going to just be leveraging your existing domain authority. It's going to be basically just another folder within your existing website that targets that country and targets that country code. It can be less recognizable from a local perspective because again, they're not seeing the .de, the .uk, and which I'd say CCTLDs are much more blatant in terms of how they appear to the local user and the local searcher who's using that website. Whereas the subdirectories on your existing domain can be, again, less recognizable to someone who's doing the search within that local market. The third option would be subdomains. And I'd say this is another route you can go. In my experience of doing this and going the route of subdomains from previous companies I've been at, I'd actually advise against subdomains, but it is another route you can go, and I'll explain why I advise against it. Um, so first off, it offers the regional targeting while also keeping the same brand identity of yourwebsite.com. However, it's going to require a lot more effort from a SEO perspective. When it comes to subdomains, whenever you start a subdomain for your website, it really is almost like starting from scratch from an SEO perspective. Google search and search engines in general will view that subdomain as a new website. So, to an extent, it's not going to be like fully blank canvas starting from nowhere, but you're not going to be, it's not a direct one-to-one transfer. So if you were saying like, if you were creating a subdirectory in your existing website, you're just leveraging your existing SEO performance, your existing organic performance, um, and trying to reach that local international market. Um, However, if you're going the route of subdomain, you're creating a new website that's going to get a little bit of, for lack of better words, like SEO juice from your main website, but you're going to need to prioritize new backlinks for this subdomain. You're going to need to prioritize new content for the subdomain. It's really going to be a uphill battle, especially if you're already ranking well from an organic perspective, that it will probably feel like you're starting from ground zero when you're going the subdomain route. So I would advise against that, but depends on the company and depends on your strategy. But you can go the route of subdomains as well for your URL structures. And so how you would actually go about doing these things and how you would implement these things. So country code, top level domains, you would need to buy the various country codes, which I mentioned earlier. This can be done in your host provider or your domain provider. And you would basically just purchase the domains you want to do and then actually create a carbon copy of your website that's localized to that market you're looking to reach. The subdirectory route, this would be a much simpler route, less technical in nature. Going the country code level, that can be more technical because you're having to, again, recreate the website and localize it. Whereas with the subdirectory, you're more so creating that folder and creating new content underneath it. But again, it just depends on the route you want to go and what your technical resources look like, how technical you are to be able to do this yourself, or if you have other teammates who can help with this. Um, I would say the one thing about this route with subdirectories is depending on how your website is built. If you have a fully custom coded website, then you're not going to have any issues with any of these. If you're using a website builder, let's say like uh, Webflow, Squarespace, whatever the case may be, not every website builder functions and has these types of features to allow for you to create subdirectories. If you were to go this route, I'd highly recommend using Webflow, or if you're already using Webflow, you can go this route by using their folder feature within the Webflow builder. But again, this is going to be dependent on what tool you have in place currently for your website to if you could go this route of subdirectories. And then for subdomains, this is actually a pretty simple direction in terms of how to set them up. You can set up subdomains within your domain host provider. There's a lot of how-to videos. If you are really unsure of how to do this, there's a hundreds of how-to videos to implement subdomains on YouTube. It's pretty straightforward, but this would be done within your host provider and in your DNS settings. So the biggest thing, as I was mentioning earlier, is even though it is simpler to implement, I would advise against subdomains just because it's kind of like starting from scratch from an SEO perspective, but it is another option for if you want to start to structure URLs to target your international markets. So looking at localization versus translation. So as someone considers international SEO, this is I'd say this is something that people often confuse and don't fully grasp the importance of. So we all probably know, what the difference is between like what translation is. So first I'll talk about translation and how you would go about deciding what shows or what language shows within your website. You're going to first just set up hreflangs for specific geo-targeting of your audience. So hreflangs are a meta tag that goes into the head tag of your specific pages or your homepage or whatever the case may be. I have some examples here how you would implement this, but this is just this is HTML that you would implement in the head that signifies to Google what page to show based off of where someone's conducting a search. So for example, if someone is conducting a search in France using country code, every country has their own country code, and you can look this up and look up a list of the different countries and their specific country codes. But say, for example, someone does a search in France, you're telling Google, you want to show this page, example.com/France, for that specific search. Similar to ES. ES is for Spanish. So this is going to determine this is signaling to Google to show the Spanish page when someone conducts the search in Spanish. So if you have a need to show your content in separate languages, whether it be like you're an e-com brand, you're a uh, in-person service in those markets, you're a software company, whatever the case may be, if you need to show a specific language to the user, that is how you would set this up. As you can imagine, in these instances, you'd be creating a translated page, for example, on the example.com FR, that would be a translated page of example.com or whatever the case may be. So that's going to determine how it's going to determine what language is shown and what version of the website to show based off of the language that someone is conducting their search in. This also helps reduce duplicate content issues. So for example, if you were to just do if you weren't using hreflangs to determine what language to show for content, and you just created the content on a separate website, for example, that's going to be triggered as that's going to signal duplicate content because you're going to have the exact same content if you didn't translate it to Google, which can hurt your SEO performance. So again, hreflang is something that you implement if you're going to be showing different versions of your website for different languages to potential searchers online. So that's basically how you would go about implementing hreflangs for like different translated pages. But now looking into localization. So as we all know, translation is direct to word conversion. So, putting English words to Spanish or French or whatever the case may be. Now, when it comes to localization, this is honestly, in my opinion, more important than the translation side of things. Localization refers to adapting your content to fit slang, cultural norms, local preferences for what people are searching for. So, for example, if you had, like in the US, Black Friday deals, in the UK, you had Boxing Day sales. So, different terminology that's used between local markets that can impact your search performance. Like, are people in the US and the UK actually searching Black Friday deals, or are they searching another search term that relates to their local market? And again, how you find these things out, first off, is I'd say if you are a local or a native speaker, or you employ or hire someone for this project that's a native speaker or from that local region, that can be one of the best ways and to easily do that. it's, obviously best to go to the source and to work with someone who knows that type of content and knows what to search. Also going the route of just conducting good old-fashioned keyword research, just conducting the keyword research, going through uh, skilling yourself up, learning what people are searching about, putting yourself in the shoes of those local searchers to better understand what they're looking for. That's how you're going to find out these terms. But again, I'd say working with someone who's local to that area or a native speaker can be very helpful when it comes to finding these localized uh, searches, slang, local preferences when you're creating this content or optimizing your content and localizing it for the um, the market you're looking to expand to. So when it comes to implementing localization, just some things to think about. As I mentioned, you want to obviously going to want to conduct keyword research to find this information. You can use Ahrefs. I usually recommend SEMrush, SEMrush. That's like my keyword research tool of choice, but there's a number of different tools out there. That's how you're going to be able to conduct region-specific search, find region-specific search terms. And especially, I know for sure in SEMrush, you can actually conduct searches and keyword research based on country. That's actually a filter that you can do within their keyword planning tool. So that's another route you can go. And just don't assume that translating English search terms word for word to another language is going to be what people are searching for. Again, going back to like the example of like even like the language didn't change, but looking at the US versus UK, Black Friday deals versus Boxing Day sales, that's still English and the search terms are different. So especially as you're looking at translating from one language to another, don't just assume that a Google Translate direct one-to-one translation is going to be what people are actually searching for. Um, Again, make sure that you're adjusting your content on your website to cultural norms and like what people are using or utilizing in that country you're expanding to. Some very straightforward examples are just first of all, if you're an e-com brand, like making sure that you're showing the correct price in like the local currency, so USD versus euros or pounds or whatever the case may be, but making sure like obviously currency is a big one when it comes to localizing for the international audience. Another one, date formats. This is something that's often overlooked, and when I've been in Europe, I've made this mistake myself of writing things backwards when it comes to date formats. In the US, it's pretty typical for us to do month, day, year. In other countries, it's all, and specifically Europe. Whenever I've been in Europe, I've most countries within Europe, if not all that I'm aware of, utilize the format of day, month, year. So these are just some of the things that to consider, but making sure that you're adjusting the content to fit the cultural norms and what people are expecting when they're viewing a website or viewing a product page or reading a blog post or whatever the case may be. Um, you're going to want to optimize for local user experience. So that involves finding the right tone, style, formal versus casual writing. This obviously plays into brand identity and like what are you a more formal brand, are you a more casual brand, so on and so forth. Again, I'd highly recommend if you were going this route and you were investing time and resources into this, that you would prioritize finding a native speaker or a local or someone who's highly proficient in the language or local to the region you're looking to expand to help with style and tone because there are going to be nuances that are you can't get from a translation tool. So I would recommend that, if you're gonna go this route, finding someone who's a native speaker to help with that content creation. Um, Obviously, another thing too is from a user experience perspective is like payment methods. There are, depending on what countries you're expanding to and looking to target, there's different payment methods like Alipay within China, Paytm in India. There's a number of different payment methods out there. And again, it depends on the country you're looking to expand to, but you'd want to do your research and ensure that you're showing uh, proper payment methods that are available to a local market from a user experience perspective. Do you people see that within China, and I don't know the data off the top of my head, and obviously I haven't done this research, but say that you're a company that's looking to expand to China, maybe you find that 23% of all purchases go through Alipay as a payment method. Well, if that's the case, then you probably should prioritize making sure we can accept that payment method and that we advertise that to that local market. Because if we don't, we're probably missing out on a good portion of sales if that is, or we could be losing out on a good portion of sales if that is a preferred payment method for the local market. And then also think about images and visuals. So like, um, for example, if you're going to make sure that if there are certain colors there that are culturally um, preferred over certain countries, for example, or if there's certain imagery that should be avoided for certain markets. These are all things that you should be considering, especially as you're looking to localize the content. At the end of the day, you're trying to present your brand positively to that in that local market. You're trying to ultimately try to get someone to convert to use your service, use your product, use your technology, and you're going to want to make sure that you're getting your best foot forward when it comes to showing images, visuals to the local demographics. So when it comes to localization, these are the things to think about. Again, it doesn't really necessarily relate to one-to-one translation or to translating a page. It's really about adapting your content and adapting your website to fit what local people expect to see, what they want to see, as they're exploring your website and engaging with your content online. So moving into keyword research. So as I've kind of harped on, it's not about translating keywords one to one. So just because you see that, hey, some of our top performing keywords in the US are, you know, best running shoes for marathon runners, for example. That's not necessarily, you're not going to want to translate that word, that keyword search one for one in this in a search in a Google Translate and put that into search terms to create content for it. You're going to want to conduct the research to see what are people who are local to that area actually searching for. Again, I'd recommend using, if you're not already, which I hope you are if you're attending this webinar, but if you're not already, I'd recommend investing in a SEO tool, a keyword research tool. Recommend SEMrush because of its feature set and what it offers. But there's a number of other tools out there. Um, that's going to allow you to conduct research to understand what are people searching for in that specific country. And that should be like the first step when it comes to creating content and determining what keywords to target on our homepage, on our product pages, on our blog post, whatever the case may be. Without conducting that research, it's really kind of a shot in the dark with uh, with your organic performance, because you're gonna basically go into creating content blindly without conducting this research. Um, for example, just to give you an example of the nuances, even between languages. So like within Spain, like if anyone's aware or versed in Spanish as a language, there are nuances between Spanish in Spain versus Spanish in Mexico. And I might butcher this myself, but like in Spain, a search might be mejores zapatillas para correr, whereas in Spanish and Mexico could be mejores tenis para correr. So like even like the vocabulary between shoes in Spanish in Spain and shoes in Spanish in Mexico, even like a vocabulary word like shoes can be pretty different and nuanced, that if you, for example, weren't a native speaker or weren't versed in the language or native in the language, that a translation tool couldn't get. I didn't conduct this if in a Google Translate, but if you were to Google Translate and search in like best shoes for running, I'd be, again, it's not going to necessarily give you that understanding of what would someone in Spain say, what would someone in Mexico say, or Latin America, for example. Moving into search engines. So I mentioned this earlier. Google is and I'm not going to say that Google is not the main search engine that is used across the world because it is. No matter what country you're in, that is generally speaking the number one search engine that is used. However, there are other preferred search engines that do have a large amount of usage that you should be considering depending on where you're looking to expand. Uh, for example, I have some of them listed here, but again, depending on your market, you'd want to do this research and understand um, which ones you're going to be going after um, and trying to expand to. But for example, in China, they have Baidu. In Russia, they have Yandex. South Korea, Naver. Japan, Yahoo Japan. So these are just some examples. And utilization of them differs from country to country, and popularity differs from country to country. But these are just things you want to be considering. As you're optimizing for these markets, you want to make sure you're also conducting keyword research and exploring these search engines. So, as you're doing keyword research, exploring competitors that are ranking for the keywords you want to be ranking for, going through these search engines, conducting keyword searches to see who am I going up against, how are these things ranking, what's preferred, what are the domains that have the highest authority. These are the things to consider, especially as you're looking to expand to these markets. If you overlook these search engines, it can be a big miss for your SEO expansion. Again, as I just said, I'd say you should put a large amount of importance and priority on conducting competitor research. So making sure you're understanding who are my local competitors. Maybe you've been in the US for years. You know who your competitors are well. You know who is, you're going up against from an organic perspective and what brands you're competing with for keyword rankings. But if, you're just now expanding to Germany, maybe you have no idea who are the competitors. What are the other services out there that I'm going up against? What are their websites? What is the content they've created? How are they ranking? These are all things that you should consider, especially as you're considering prioritizing SEO and expansion into these international markets. Um, the things that you want to ask yourself, as I just mentioned, but the keywords they're ranking for. So does it make sense for us to go after the same keywords they're going for that they're ranking for? Should we try to outrank them? Should we try to find gaps in keywords where we see that they've overlooked a certain keyword search or keyword phrase? Um, Also, especially if you're new to the market or don't have a large amount of knowledge or background for that specific international market, going through and reviewing the content they produce can be extremely insightful because if they're, say, a German-based company and they've been investing in content and they have content on their website, that's going to actually help you inform your own content strategy for that specific geography. What type of content is resonating with local searchers there? What type of content for example, are Germans engaging with? Maybe you find that this company is prioritizing case studies, and they don't have blog posts. They spent most of their time into creating case studies on their service or product or whatever the case may be. Or maybe they've spent more time in creating video content for their website, and that's what they've been prioritizing. But either way, going through and reviewing the type of content that these local companies have produced can really help inform, first off, what's resonating with those local audiences, but also what you should prioritize as you think about your content strategy from an international perspective. Um, Other things to look at, meta titles and descriptions they use. So again, looking at when you're conducting these searches and conducting this research, what titles are showing, what descriptions show up in Google search. Are there certain themes that you can pull out, things that they're leveraging or not leveraging? Maybe there's nuances that you never considered when you were thinking about your own title structures or your own meta descriptions when you were in the US, and maybe you should just look to aim to implement as you look at these new markets. Again, it's gonna vary from country to country, so there really is no rule of thumb here, but these are the types of things to consider as you're doing the research. And again, using a keyword research tool. I want to harp on that because without some sort of tool in place, um, where you can conduct these keyword researches and like look at these domain level keywords, um, it's really going to be I'd say nearly impossible. It is possible, but nearly impossible to really inform your strategy and how you'd expand organically. So now looking at link building strategies. So as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, as you think about domain authority, so you may find that, I have a strong domain authority in the US. I've spent time building backlinks, creating content, that I've been able to build up my domain authority. That doesn't necessarily mean that your domain authority is going to have the same impact in a new market, whether it be the UK, Germany, France, whatever country you're looking to expand to. Um, One of the best ways to improve your domain authority for these new markets is looking at country-specific backlinks. So as I was just mentioning, like for our own websites, if we had a .ca for Canada, .uk, .fr for France, whatever the case may be, if you're able to generate backlinks from websites that have similar website structuring, so generating backlinks from say websites or bloggers or industry leaders that have .fr, .de, .uk, basically whatever market you're looking to expand to, that's going to be signals to Google search that this is an authoritative website for this local market. So as you think about expanding, you also want to think about, okay, as part of our expansion strategy for organic, how are we going to start looking at building backlinks for those countries? Are we going to be reaching out to local bloggers? Are we going to be reaching out to tangential companies that are in the area to promote our services and get backlinks there? Are we going to establish partnerships? Obviously it depends on the product, the service, or your technology, whatever your company is, but trying to find ways to generate those local backlinks. Also, country specific directories. So, directories where you can list your business. Potentially, these are other ways that you can generate these country specific backlinks. Um, it's going to help improve by doing these things, you're going to help improve your country specific domain authority. Um, which, again, just because you say you have a high domain authority in the US does not necessarily mean that it's going to be have the same impact in, say, Germany, because you have to consider there's other competitors in that market, other competitors in that country who have built up a domain authority and a credibility, and that's in that local market that you're going to be competing against. So by building up those backlinks, you're going to be able to start to get closer to ranking at the same level or outranking them by getting more of those country-specific websites to build up your credibility and your authority by getting those backlinks. One of the things I'd say is like a strategy that I would recommend doing as in the early days, if you're just getting started, is trying to find guest post opportunities. And honestly, too, like this is, I'd say this, I'd recommend this to even like if you were trying to get more backlinks in the US as well. Guest posting can be one of the best ways to generate backlinks. I will say that this isn't, just as I'm describing this, other companies are trying to do the same thing on a daily basis. So it can be pretty competitive to secure a guest post spot, but it is worth the effort if you are looking to find new opportunities to generate backlinks. Um, some ways to find country specific blogs is going straight into Google search. You can do searches like guest post France in, technology, or guest post France short-term rentals, or whatever the case may be, or write for us in a specific language. These are some searches you can go about and do some research and try to find some opportunities for guest post. But this is going to be one of the quickest ways, I'd say, and best ways to generate these early backlinks to improve your local domain authority. Obviously, I'd say um, make sure that there's a difference between, say, someone who's based in the US with a .com website that maybe they love France and they vacation in France, multiple times a year, and they're a blogger about the French countryside. But at the end of the day, there's still a US focused website. They're a .com website that's targeting US travelers for the most part. So you want to make sure that if you are going the route of guest posting, that you are working with companies or with blogs, websites that have the .france, .da, .ca, whatever the country code is. That's the ideal target for who you should be trying to write for and get the backlinks from. Just because the topic is about said country or what have you, or they write about that country, that doesn't mean that that website has a strong domain authority in the market you're trying to expand to. So that's just something to consider. Um, and as you think about writing this content, think about writing as just following the same principles we've discussed, making sure the content is localized. If it is in another language, make sure that you're not just doing a Google Translate and writing content in English and Google translating it. I'd take the time to find a native speaker to write this content, um, and bringing them on board as a contractor or something like that to create the content if nobody in your team is a native speaker. Um, and just make sure to ensure the content is relevant to local trends, stats, issues, local tone, local style of writing. These are all things to consider as you think about guest posting. And guest posting can be highly competitive. So like the higher quality the post, the more localized the content is to a local audience, the higher likelihood the post will be accepted and posted, and you'd get that backlink. Um, and again, this is probably in my opinion, this is one of the best and fastest ways to generate backlinks in a new international market. But again, consider going, make sure you're going after websites that are focused on that country and not just US based websites that are talking about that country or targeting that or, writing about what's happening in that country. I also say don't overlook local social media. Although I will say that most social media links are no follow links, so that means that they will not directly impact your domain authority. They still can drive traffic and increase your brand visibility. And every country, well, a lot of the big countries have their own social channels. So, for example, China, there's WeChat, Weibo. Um, Germany, there's Zing. In Japan, Thailand, there's Line. There's a number of ones out there, and it just obviously depends on the market you're looking to expand to. But by engaging with these social platforms and getting people talking about the brand, and improving your brand visibility, social media is a um, social indicators are actually, even though they are no follow links, social indicators, sharing on socials, brands being mentioned on socials, those do have an impact on organic performance. I will say they do have a smaller impact, so they're not the biggest thing to consider or the biggest thing to prioritize, but they can have they can have an impact on your SEO performance for that local market, even though it's not a big component of SEO. Um, so again, create content that's specific, and localized to the regions you're looking to reach, not just reposting from like what you put on the US Facebook page or the US Instagram page. Try to get involved with local influencers, local collaborations. Also, too, user generated content. If you're looking to get in front of and be purchased or used by a local market, having a local talk about your product or your service, speaking in the native language, these are all great ways to ensure that your social content is actually going to perform and actually perform well in these local markets that you're looking to expand to. And then finally, the last thing we'll talk about is just measuring success. So say you go through all of these steps, all these things to prioritize, you get your domain structure in place, you do your keyword research. How do you know if this is actually working out, and actually driving revenue and conversions for our business? It's pretty straightforward. The main things that you're going to want to know and have a handle on and follow as you prioritize these things, Google Analytics and Search Console, you're going to want to make sure that you have an understanding of your traffic, your source mediums by country. This can all be filtered and searched through Google Analytics. So how much organic traffic am I driving for each specific country? Is this specific country that I'm looking to expand to? Am I seeing growth in organic? Am I driving more sessions? And in turn, in Google Analytics, you can see, what are my bounce rates look like? How many people are converting that I'm driving organically? Um, Having a handle on your rankings. So again, tools like SEMrush or SEMrush, they can be great in tracking your keyword positioning. So, am I now ranking for searches in a foreign language? Am I in the first page of Google search for the searches I'm going after? These can all be tracked in these ranking tools and these rank tracking tools to better understand how your keyword positioning looks. And obviously, if you're prioritizing this, and you haven't before, you should start to see rankings in the local language or in the new keyword research you've done for those local markets. And then understanding user engagement metrics, obviously. So bounce rates, conversion rates by country. Um, Google Analytics is a great tool to have for this, especially if you have your key events set up properly, whether that be buying a t-shirt, booking a demo call, whatever the case may be, but making sure that you properly track your conversions within Google Analytics. You can then filter by source medium and understand, hey, how many organic searches am I getting from Germany? Or how many organic sessions did I get in the last 30 days from from German IP address that actually converted and purchased or booked a call. So these are the metrics that I'd say you want to have a handle on and be tracking as you prioritize SEO, especially as you're expanding to new markets. And this honestly relates to SEO in general. Like you should be also have a handle on these metrics from a US perspective as well if you don't already. Um, but moving forward, if you were to implement this, these are the things to keep a handle on. But um, that is all that I had for today and international SEO. So would love to have some time here at the end for questions that anyone maybe has from the presentation.
Hi, can I just jump in?
Yeah, you can feel free to jump in or go in the chat, but whatever's easiest for anybody.
Um, I'll jump in unless someone wants to jump over me. Um, Hi, I'm Peter. I run a website called gaywellness.com, and this was extremely helpful. Thank you so much for um the talk and very timely. Oh, it says the meeting schedule is about to end. Do we have to leave?
No, 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 that's someone the note taker. You're good to go.
Okay. Oh, fireflies. So here I'll just say hi to everyone. I'm in my camper here. So this is let me just share because it's directly about, if I can, if not that's okay. It's about the reflangs. So I have it's a directory for wellness providers, massage therapists, whatever. Well, many categories of wellness. And we're mainly in the US, but we have some in maybe several hundred in Europe in different countries. I've started the process with just one language of Spanish, and I went for your third option, the subdomain es.gaywellness. Now, the reason I went for that, even though I would have preferred localization, although, well, I went with this plugin called WeGlow, a WeGlot, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but basically it was asking me to input a subdomain. So what I have is um here, I'll just share it. Well, everybody can see my taxes. Great. Um
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
see here. Okay.
I don't know if
So
yeah,
this is my week.
I was gonna say, I don't know if you're trying to share your screen. I don't think we have time to share screens, but happy to answer any questions. And if you want, we can have a call after this and I can kind of go through and we can
Okay,
talk
so
about it.
that's fine. Yeah, yeah, no, totally. Yeah, so to keep it brief is just whether like this is doing the job that you're suggesting. Like is it because it yeah, I guess maybe that's looking at the code issue and that would be like, but like because basically it's just doing these translation requests.
Mm. Yeah, so I guess I would need to, maybe we should have a call and talk about it, because I would want to understand like what exactly you're trying to do. Um, Basically, so if you're looking to show a translated page of your website, that's when you're gonna really want to implement hreflangs to ensure that you're showing the correct language and translation.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, why advise against subdomains? And it sounds like if you're using a plugin, I don't know if you, I assume you're using like WordPress, and that's like a plugin with WordPress.
It's similar to WordPress, the CMS. It's a directory CMS, but yeah.
Okay, cool. Then it might just be a plugin like feature which you don't have control over. That's just how they function. Why you had to go the subdomain route. Um, so yeah, I would need to better understand the question. I think we probably would want to have a deeper dive to talk about exactly. But if you have the hreflangs implemented, you have a translated version of the page, you have ES implemented as your hreflangs tag for Spanish, you have your subdomain set up properly, you should be good to go.
Yeah, it's because we're ranking #1 in Barcelona, but it's showing the page in English when I show.
Mm,
It's like I don't know that it's working, you know. And that, but the plugin says it does reflangs. So yeah, maybe it's like an
yeah,
in-depth thing.
yeah, we probably have a deeper discussion and look at it. Well, I think that we're getting close to time, so I'll hand it back to Kayla. And if anybody has questions, they want to have a deeper discussion, feel free to book a call and we can have a 30-minute call to talk deeper about any questions someone might have.
Perfect. And I see in the chat someone's asking about a recording. Yes, this session was recorded. So if it's okay with you, Ryan, we can put it on the Start Out YouTube page for folks to access after this fact if you missed anything. And yes, thank you so much for being here, Ryan. This is so interesting and helpful and really great content. I also wanted to plug that Ryan's going to be back tomorrow at the same time for another session about optimizing SEO for search engines. And so I'm going to put the link to register that in the chat right now in case anyone hasn't. And we've got this great QR code on the screen if you have more questions that we didn't get to, because I know we are right up at time. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here today, for being engaged and asking great questions. And we'll hope to see you either tomorrow or at another Start Out event soon.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.